on.
Of
Technology is
course.
great. I got a little bit of human error here, but I think we are ready to roll. So,
No, I listen, it's happened probably to all of us. So I'm ready to roll. Now, I will say I'm very happy to connect face to screen. My video is not currently enabled. Not a big deal.
all right.
But if you have a minute, I'll go ahead and get
Okay.
started, and then
Yep.
I can,
And I'll keep looking at it. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. So welcome, you guys. Thank you for joining us. This is actually one of my favorite conversations to have with small business owners. I'm going to go through the slides here, and I want to start by just recommending. I say this with all humor intended, but one of the most tempting parts of participating in an Instagram course is that temptation to look at the app. Instagram is primarily used on our phones, but I absolutely promise you that I've done this with several groups, and the most useful way that you're going to be able to really put this information to use is let me walk you through it. I have plenty of screenshots, and then you'll be able to navigate it on your own. So that's why I say all eyes on me. What we're going to talk about today is launching in to find out, is an Instagram profile the right fit for your business? And then we're going to start with launching. If some of you are on Instagram, but you don't feel like you're fully utilizing it or really maximizing every opportunity, then some of this may be repetitive for you, but it's my goal to make sure that you derive value no matter where you fall on the spectrum, whether you are a 1 for, uh, like a microwave to a caveman, or all the way up to a 10, you feel like you're on level with Mark Zuckerberg. You're going to derive value today. That's my goal. We're going to talk about strategy for using Instagram to enhance, complement, and complete really your marketing strategy for your small business. We're going to explore uses of Facebook and Instagram together, and then raising the engagement level once you have launched that Instagram business account. And then we're going to talk about all sorts of ways that you can blend this tactic into a part of your larger strategy. All right, so I'll check in and see. Oh, there I am. Hi. I just feel like I'm a little more live now. I I include this information, these statistics. I almost feel like it's really necessary. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have at least some degree of appreciating the importance of the Instagram audience to your business. So I will read these to you. I'll hit you with some highlights. One of the things that I enjoy most for business applications of Instagram is the fact that nowadays we live in such a disconnected society. Technology has us so frequently feeling disconnected from our customers and our stakeholders, and they are feeling a little more disconnected to us as a brand. And so it's really nice. Instagram has a very touchy-feely, although it's obviously a piece of technology, it feels quite engaging. And so Instagram is an important audience for your business if you are interested, and you should be, in building community. If your goal is to make your customers and stakeholders feel like they are a part of your brand, then Instagram, I'm really glad that you're here. You're going to derive a lot of value from it. So one of the most important statistics that kind of jumps off the page to me, and I feel like this is low for my personal experience and just the accounts that I manage on behalf of clients. Smartphone owners frequently engage on Instagram, and they check it. Other statistics that I have seen say they check Instagram even more frequently than they check on other social media channels like Twitter or Facebook. Instagram, this graph I put on here, this slide deck is probably a couple of months old, and I think if I were to do it again today, then it would probably make sense to address TikTok If you hear, people are talking about sort of the new shiny object is TikTok. It's a very similar phone-based, video-based platform. But this is just a reminder that as far as tapping into the most highly engaged and the fastest growing audience, Instagram really is it. But let's just stop here for a moment, because anytime that you see a social media presentation, they're always talking about the millions, right? But if you are running a small business, the millions begs the question of quality. If you have identified your target audience, then you recognize that you really need to build relevance to a defined audience rather than just broadcasting to the millions. So while the statistics are important, what I'm really looking forward to sharing with you is some of the meatier topics. So I just want to, just so we're all on the same page, and I'll read through these really, really quickly, but as we go through and we're talking about Instagram, I don't want you to feel lost or alienated, because we use some terms that, if you've never heard them before, you may not understand the context. So really quickly, tagging. Instagram is very, very conversational, and because it is also very visual, we're telling visual stories on Instagram. And if you were in a conversation face to face, you and I were sitting at a coffee shop, for example, and I was telling you about someone else, then I may say, let me pull up a picture of this person so that you can know who I'm talking about, or let me give you some more information. Or if they were in the room, I may say, it's that guy over there, right? Tagging is similar. And so tagging is important in a business setting, because when you have community partners, vendors, networks like the SBAM, then you are going to want to tag and be tagged and associate your content and your conversations with those partners. So tagging is the way that you do that. If I, for example, had a message to share, and I stood out on the sidewalk and I just, was speaking my truth, if someone stood in alignment with me, then they might come, and if they were of the same mind, they might come and stand next to me. Tagging is like, can work that same way. It's to show, we're in this conversation together. When I use the term handle, that's really just kind of interchangeable with the phrase username. Hashtags, do you remember when that used to be a number sign or a pound sign? But a hashtag is a really handy tool. If you just imagine all of the conversations that you have as part of your brand story, they're going to fall into some categories. So if you imagine in your mind a file drawer that is filled with notes from all of the brand story conversations that you have as a part of your strategic marketing plan, wouldn't it be nice to put them into organized file folders? That's what hashtags do. Now, Instagram is a hashtag rich environment. Hashtags are really important because I have a file drawer full of notes from conversations, to stay with the analogy, that I've used to tell about my brand story. Let's say, for example, I have a salon and spa. So what might some of those file folder labels say? They may say beauty. They may say love my hair. They may say colorist. They may say hairstyles for kids. I don't know. But those file folders, now guess what? There are other people who are talking about the same things that are labeled on my file folders, right? They are vendors, people who also work in the health and beauty field. They are competitors. They are peers. And they are, most importantly, customers or target customers. So hashtags can be very, very important. It's also interesting to think about hashtags in terms of other affinities that our target may have for our brand. For example, if I am a local coffee shop in Holland, Michigan, then I really want to tap into that magic that exists all along that western coast. And so I may, in my if you'll just go back to the analogy of that big file drawer full of notes about conversations, I may have a file folder that's filled with, West Michigan specific topics. Hashtags work exactly that way. And so whether you are trying to organize your own brand conversations or listen in on and tap into the conversations of other social media users, that's when hashtags really come into play. Now, as you can imagine, this file drawer, some of those file folders are going to be super fat. If I am an auto dealer, for example, and I sell Ford trucks, then I'm probably going to have a really full file folder of Ford. So that hashtag is really what we would call broad, because if it's a big fat file folder in my drawer, guess what? It's going to be a big fat file folder in a lot of drawers. So those broad hashtags are going to ensure that that conversation is a part of a big piece of the Instagram conversation. But I want to make sure that I also account for those tiny little file folders that make me really unique, those niche file folders. So I'll hashtag things like, again, location. Now, there are other ways that we can denote our location. We're going to talk about that in the next topic, but hashtags are important for tapping into and being a part of the conversation in large and small ways. We'll talk about hashtags a lot today. I mentioned location. Sorry about that. Today's not our technical day. I mentioned location. It is for some businesses, for particularly small businesses who are location based, which I would imagine many of you are, then a geography check-in or a geography tag is going to make your Instagram post a part of a conversation around that place. And then when you hear me talk about engagement, that's really just other people taking part in that conversation with you, whether that is in the form of responding to, they're liking what you post on Instagram, they are resharing what you're posting on Instagram, or in other ways engaging, maybe commenting or asking questions, or hopefully converting into customers. So those are some of the most common social media terms. And as we go through this today, hopefully a knowledge of them is going to help you understand a little better what I'm talking about. I wanted to just really briefly put Instagram in context with other social media channels. So we look at Facebook and Instagram. They are part of the same company. Facebook actually owns Instagram and has for some time. It wasn't always that way. And to Facebook's credit, they have really maintained the integrity of Instagram as a fairly unique property. So there are a lot of similarities. But for the most part, Instagram has a very different personality. And so we're going to be able to tap in and use those two to complement and complete one another. So Facebook and Instagram, particularly when we start to carry advertising, we're going to be able to post across those two channels. Facebook and Instagram are siblings. The next, of course, we'll talk about LinkedIn. Now, if Facebook and Instagram were analogous to a conversation, I would think that they are maybe a coffee shop conversation. Again, if you and I are sitting at a coffee shop, I don't mind telling you about my family, about things I'm interested in. I'm going to be pretty relaxed. That's a coffee shop level conversation. LinkedIn, as you probably know, is more akin to a boardroom conversation, right? The next icon represents Pinterest. So Pinterest, if you're not familiar, is really just a bulletin board. That's terribly oversimplifying it, but Pinterest is important in helping your online properties gain visibility. Finally, there's YouTube. I'm sure you're familiar with this video channel. It's also a really important search engine. And then, of course, Twitter, which I suppose if I had to pick out what kind of a conversation Twitter would be, I guess it would be a cocktail party where there are lots and lots and lots of conversations going on that are not terribly deep, but might launch off into other spaces. All right, so the core question is, Is Instagram right for your business? Well, first you have to ask yourself about the person or persons who are responsible for being the voice of your brand. So many small business owners both oversee and execute. And so you need to realistically ask yourself if this is a channel that you are going to be able to maintain and manage in a way that is respectful to the rest of your brand story. The worst thing, and I hate to see this happen to small businesses, is they get all full of excitement and they launch into a new channel and they either lose interest or maybe the technology just doesn't fit their style and they fall off. And so they'll have an Instagram channel that can apply to really any online property and it looks like a ghost town. So this perpetuates it really paints a picture of us just really not being completely dialed in and with it. And so my advice to you would be, whether it's Instagram or really any online channel, I would rather you have no presence than to have an underutilized presence. So as I go through today, I want you to just keep that question in the back of your mind. Is Instagram a fit for you? And then, is it a fit for your brand? There are some, I used to always say, you can tell that it's a fit for your brand. Instagram is a fit for your brand if you have a visual product. But really, as we have grown in our knowledge of what works best and is most effective with connecting with audiences, every product is a visual product. One of the channels that I most enjoy following is a life insurance agent. And one would never think insurance is a visual product. I mean, it's not something that you can hold in your hand. But as you might imagine, she shares tons of stories about insuring the things that matter. And the things that matter really do convey very well in photography. So think about that. And a good way to find out, is this the right fit for my particular brand, is to do a little bit of hashtag research. And I'll show you how to do this in a moment, on your industry and see what others are doing and just check it out for inspiration. And next, you're going to ask yourself if this makes sense for your audience. The most frequent question I get asked when I am talking to small business owners about helping them with their marketing is, Cindy, does Facebook work? Does Instagram work? For that matter, I get, do billboards work? Does radio work? And the truth of the matter is they all work. There are two things that are true. One is they work best when they are layered on top of one another. But with regards to Instagram, particularly since that's what we're talking about today, you really need to ask yourself if your target, if your persona is on Instagram. Are they consuming media there? If they do not fit the rather broad category of Instagram users, then you may spend some time rethinking this. And then finally, does it align with your business goals? Marketing only matters if it converts to revenue. And so many of us, Instagram is very, very tactile. When we are taking pictures and when we are posting, it feels like we're doing a physical activity that feels like marketing. But at the end of the day, it's really not relevant if it doesn't convert to revenue. Otherwise, marketing is just kind of fun. So we're not here to talk about hobbies. We're here to talk about growing your business. And so make sure that your brand story being told on Instagram aligns with your existing strategic marketing goals. Here are the steps to success, most of which we will cover today, but not all of them, because again, this is sort of an introductory level course. And one of the reasons I wanted you to focus on the slides is because the technology is easy. If you were able to sign on to a Zoom call, you're not going to have any trouble launching Instagram. So it's more a strategy. As a business owner, you only have so many hours in a day. And while Instagram is super fun, if it does not, again, lead to revenue, and if it does not fit your goals, then you're not going to be able to do it. So steps to success, we're beginning today, but I want to paint a picture for you of things that you should take on next. Because you may have come to this webinar with a familiarity of Instagram. You may have said, I really hope that we learn about using IGTV. I really hope that we learn about insights. And so I just want to build a path for you of the order that I recommend you follow for best practices. First is, and you don't have a choice in this, every profile starts as a personal profile. It's a really good way to learn how to just navigate around the platform. You're new here, so give yourself some time to look around. And then, of course, as I recommended, you will use hashtags to find other profiles, other topics. You're going to find other profiles that are in your industry category, that are in your geography area, and have other affinity connections to you and your stakeholders and customers. And then, assuming that it is the right fit for your business, you will move to a business profile. I'll show you screenshots of this in just a moment. And then, of course, you are going to decide when and what and how to post to your Instagram profile. Now, as we've discussed, Instagram primarily lives on your phone, and you're going to have to find that visual story and how you convey it. I have a tendency when I work with clients, I really enjoy posting things on Instagram that are the same topic, but a little different take than what is posted on their LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter pages. And so you'll want to go through that in a way that fits your business and your brand and your voice and the story that you want to tell in the marketplace about what you are going to post to your business profile. The most tragic thing is when I talk to small business owners and they're like, I haven't posted to Instagram in a week. Well, all you really need to do is make a plan and then do your very darndest to stick to that plan. And I have some tools that can help with that. I'm going to share with you some tips for best practices, for visual content with regards to pictures and photographs. And we're going to talk about best practices for videos. I'm going to briefly go through some Instagram story tips with you. And then next steps, you should explore IGTV for your business profile. The shortest way I can explain what IGTV is just by explaining that if Instagram were married to YouTube, it would be really, really similar to what IGTV is all about. But IGTV, just like YouTube, is a great way for you to film demonstration videos or explainer videos or introduction videos. IGTV similarly is a really powerful tool. Instagram Insights, if you're familiar with maybe Google Analytics, tells you about traffic patterns. By exploring Instagram Insights, which you'll want to do once you've mastered all the things that will get you launched, Instagram Insights will tell you about your traffic patterns. Who is your audience? Where are they coming from? What days of the week are they connecting with you and whatnot? I think it's also important that after you've established a bit of a following and you've navigated around, that you really explore sponsoring content on Instagram and otherwise advertising. And then, of course, I think it's just always important that you keep your ear to the ground and adhere to best practices for Instagram. I just spoke with a small business owner who was talking about viral. How can I make this go viral? I've worked in an advertising agency setting for so very long, and I have seen so many folks navigate difficult PR circumstances that I don't tend to go for the viral. I am really not a fan of having buzz building as a goal. I am far more interested in building brand. And so for that reason, I always recommend that you work to adhere to best practices in Instagram. All right, so I promised you that I would walk you through the steps of setting up your profile. Let's take a look. So this is a screenshot. If I were on Instagram, then you would be looking basically right at my phone. And this is just a quick view of the store, whether it is the Google, whatever the Google store is called, or your iTunes store. Wherever you acquire apps for your device, that's where you will find Instagram. You'll just click on Get. And then that's going to walk you through, as I said before, the technology has many, many steps, but far less technically savvy people than you have easily mastered launching an Instagram. And so it's going to walk you right through. From the get-go, it is going to, the little fairies and robots that are behind this app are going to determine that you are, assuming you are, a Facebook user, and if so, it's going to ask you to connect. It's not essential. You can use Instagram independent of Facebook, but that's what that's all about. It's going to ask you to connect with your phone. And again, if I were setting up an Instagram profile live on the scene right now, this is exactly what those screenshots would look like. The technology is super simple. You will add your name. Now, the nice thing is with Instagram, as in, you'll have a similar situation with Twitter. Remember before how I talked about the username, and it's that word that you choose as your handle that has that little @ sign in front of it. So a lot of them are, as you can imagine, taken. I facilitate a community of business owners who are all about sharing marketing ideas. It's called the Marketing Idea Exchange. So I wanted my username to be Mix, but of course it's taken. There are radio stations all over the country that are named Mix. So instead of having to be some crazy, name, I was able to, in this screen, in this step, I was able to add Mix as my name. And then when I identify my handle, that's going to be something like, I'll have to tweak that a bit. But you're able to claim a name, which is different than your handle, your username, which is convenient. It gives me the option of connecting to Facebook and finding friends who are already users there. I do think it is a best practice. And so I recommend that you connect Facebook and Instagram, as I've mentioned. And then Instagram is, I hate to talk about Instagram or any of these channels as if they are thinking, breathing humans who are making decisions, but sometimes the technology makes us think so, right? So Instagram is going to always be pushing you, and Instagram really wants you to connect with like-minded users, and they're going to offer you opportunities, and this is just one of them. So Instagram is always going to be similar to Facebook, suggesting other brands and users to follow. And then finally, you're there, you're at your profile. And again, we start with a personal profile. So now it is time to share to Instagram. Instagram is going to share from our camera. And so in this screenshot, this is just where the app is asking me to enable camera access. You've seen this before on other apps. And then it's going to walk me through the process of sharing photos and videos. Again, the name is flexible, and the username is what's going to be my address on Instagram. And now it's time to, before I switch too fast, now you have a personal profile on Instagram. This is the point at which I recommend you take a pause and you navigate, you learn to use this search tool, and you use hashtag searches, and you get to know the platform. Every single one of these social media channels has its own unique set of technologies and sets of little icons and things. So take a little bit to navigate the space. But when you are ready and when you have determined that it is time to switch to business profile, then here's how you'll do it. you are simply going to always look for, this thing is called a hamburger. Not entirely sure why, although I suppose it's three stacked bars, almost like bun burger bun. It's called a hamburger, and it's actually really, really important. Not just in Instagram. Anytime you see that three stacked bars, that's a navigation feature. So it's going to, if we depress that, if we click on that, then it's going to take us to settings. And then we are going to, if you'll see, that very bottom option is switching to a business account. And I do recommend you, just like on Facebook, I never recommend you use a personal profile for your business. And Instagram is exactly the same. There are all sorts of capabilities, many of which we'll explore here in just a moment, that are available to business accounts that are just simply not available to personal accounts because they're not typically needed by just personal users. So this is how you will, once you're comfortable, switch to your business account. Now, once you have done that, your profile starts to look like this. Now, this looks really crowded and really confusing because it is the first time you see it. So let's take a look at all the different pieces of it. And this is why I wanted you to have eyes on this screen before you're trying to figure it out on your device. All right. So this circle on the top left, this is your profile photo. Clicking here is going to lead to stories. Stories are just photos or videos that disappear after 24 hours. If you've ever seen Snapchat, or if you've ever seen these bite-sized nuggets of videos, this is where you can produce them on your Instagram business profile. It's a lot of fun. It's interesting, and I would imagine that this is something that your brand would really like to explore. I'll just point out again the little hamburger at the top right hand. Anytime you're feeling lost or overwhelmed, click there. Your help is probably located right there. I don't know if your screen is obscured by this the same way mine is, but that red arrow is just pointing to your username. And people ask me sometimes, is it possible to manage more than one? You know, if I decide to have a personal profile and then launch an additional profile for my brand, is that permissible? And it absolutely is. That, where the red arrow is pointing, that's where you would toggle that. So like, for example, on my phone, I manage several Instagram accounts, and anytime I'd like to switch between them, I just click right there on that username across the top. Then you'll want to edit your profile. That's where you're going to be able to populate this large body of text. That's a short description. Be sure that you drop hashtags in there. For my business profile, you know, most small business owners only talk about marketing as a portion of their work. Marketing is all that I do. And so I just chose one hashtag to drop into that profile, but it's relevant because I want to show up. I want to be seen as a part of that conversation. So if yours is, if you're in auto detailing and that's your core business, then that might be the hashtag. You have a really limited space, as you can tell in this profile section. The highlights bar. Now remember above when I was talking about stories. Stories are these bite-sized nuggets. A lot of times you can do them live, you can record them and then upload them. They disappear from your stories newsfeed in about 24 hours. They're really, really short-lived. But what if you want to hang on to them? So that's where these highlights buttons come into effect. The way you set them up is that hamburger that the blue arrow is pointing to at the top right-hand corner. These are called highlights, and they will typically fall into one of several categories. For example, if you have a jewelry store and you wanted to highlight stories of your luxury watches, which are different than your gold jewelry, which is different than your engagement rings, then you may film the story, you know, little bite-sized nuggets. And then so that you don't lose it in 24 hours, Instagram will ask you, the app will prompt you, and it will ask as you're posting it, hey, do you want to add this to a highlight? You might want to serve this up later. And so your round buttons, whereas my say highlight, about us, free resources, yours may say luxury watches, diamond engagement rings, and so on. I hope that makes sense. You also see the IGTV icon. This is something that you're going to want to explore once you have established your profile, once you're a little more comfortable. It's just too much to take on all at once, but just know what that is. It's great for lengthier pieces, videos that explain things, maybe offer a behind the scenes, maybe an open house tour. I know a lot of real estate agents who use this IGTV with great success. So be sure you put that on your list of things to explore a bit later. Let's look, if we can, across the bottom navigation. This little home icon, as you can guess, takes you to your news feed. So what we've not talked a lot about so far is following other brands. Now, as you started with your personal profile, I told you to do a little hashtag research and find other brands that are either in your category, maybe in your neighborhood, maybe they have same interests as you, complementary offerings. How are you going to see what they are posting? How are you going to see the news feed? That little icon will get you there. The magnifying glass is pretty consistent across so many of these channels. As you can guess, it means the search tool. If we hop over to the far right side, this account icon brings you back to your own profile. So it would bring you back here. And then this little heart symbol, if you click on that, it's going to show you folks who have liked, shared, commented, and otherwise engaged with things that you have posted. And then finally, we're going to click on this center plus sign to post. Let me show you what that looks like. So when you depress that plus sign in the center, then it's going to take you to a screen that looks just like this. Now, this was my camera roll at the moment I took this screenshot. This is all the recent photos that are on my phone. And so once you've clicked on that, you'll post directly from your camera roll. Next, you have an opportunity to apply filters. And filters are just sort of an added personality to a photo. We'll talk about that a bit in a moment when we talk about best practices. But you are able to edit it and otherwise change that photo as you like. And then finally, you have the option to post this photo. You're going to want to write an engaging caption, and then you are going to want to include, as part of that caption, 5 to 7 hashtags. I'm going to talk to you in a moment about what those hashtags should be. But the reason, remember, is because this is a part of our brand story. And if we go back to that analogy of the big file drawer, this is a part of our conversation, right? And so those hashtags are going to help categorize the conversation with other people who are having similar conversations about that same topic. Okay, so how can you quick start all of this? Well, first, be sure that you follow first. And I love the giver's gain philosophy. So you engage with other people's content without worrying whether or not they're following you back or worrying about whether or not they're liking and sharing your posts. In the beginning, just be an observer and a consumer, if you will, of good Instagram content. Always stay true to your brand voice. It's all too tempting to push just product or push just location or even push just team members. Mix it up and stay true to your brand, all of your brand identity, which is, of course, part of complementing and completing what's already in place. And as I mentioned before, I do believe in giver's gain, but make sure that you are particularly making an effort to engage with on task, on topic profiles. So make sure that they're relevant to your industry, and most importantly, relevant to your customer. And then create a sense of community when someone comes and checks into your location. This is one of the most important pieces. This is probably the best tip I can give you today, is once you have established Instagram, and for that matter, Facebook as well, be aware that users are going to be checking in at your location. And particularly, I see this happen at restaurants. I actually just left lunch earlier today, and my colleague and I took a photo of our delicious lunch, and we posted it right from the location we checked in. That's a great opportunity for that brand, for that restaurant to engage with us. And that really helps that conversation to grow. And if they do engage with me, hey, thanks, Cindy, for stopping by. Great photo of your lunch. Then what's going to happen is everyone in my network is going to see that I have a deep love and appreciation for my delicious lunch spot. Make sense? So I want you to start really focusing on creating that sense of community among all of your users. So as I've mentioned before, hashtag rich environment. So you're going to use them to find other profiles to follow, and you're going to use them so that other relevant profiles will be following you. Real quickly, I'm going to share with you some hashtag tips, most of which I've already mentioned. I like to pick a hashtag that is so niche that it is unique to you. So for mine, for example, it's mix marketing. I don't think anyone on this earth uses mix marketing but me, and only me. So you think, well, gosh, Cindy, that is a pretty skinny file folder. But that's fine, because what I'm able to do is very quickly, by a hashtag search, see all of the conversations either that I have started or that have been started on behalf that are talking about my brand. Also, those general appeal hashtags, again, if I was a lunch deli, and I might use the hashtag deli, and that is going to be a part of a conversation of every deli everywhere all over the place. So those general appeal hashtags have their place. Niche hashtags are not always just geography, but they are specific and narrow. Location hashtags, you can check in by location and use a hashtag like, West Michigan love, or Youper, or whatever. And then less is more. Make sure that you focus. I see people using tons and tons and tons of hashtags, and really the best practices is between 5 and 9, and you have a little leeway through there. So, well, ta-da. So I do recommend that you follow Instagram profiles that you would like to emulate. When I share my slides with you, you may check these out as well. A note here why I like to follow them. One of them is Waller Music. She doesn't have a ton of followers, but she is so genuine and so sincere in her content. Gary Vee, if you don't already follow him, he's great for inspiring entrepreneurial messages, and so on and so forth. Really quick, I want to run through, because I think you guys have had some questions. If you've been hanging on to your questions, I know we got a little bit of a late start, but I'm really trying not to go over. Having said that, I'm happy to continue answering your questions, even if we have to do so offline. But anyway, I want to wrap up really quickly with just best practices for specific topics, content. You are sharing visual messages via video or photography. And so it's really important that you focus on experiences over products. If you are a restaurant, for example, then some of the experiences that you may not be thinking of are the preparation of the food. Focus on the experience. Write carefully worded captions. I get so tired. I think people post caption this. Use those cop-outs very infrequently. The photo tells the story, but the captions really where you're going to build that engagement. And make sure that on Instagram particularly, you are all about giving. You are just teaching and telling the story of your brand and how you help your stakeholders and the customers. With regards to pictures, The best thing that I can tell you about photographs is use natural lighting where you're able. White space, people just love to pack in everything in that frame. Keep in mind that a lot of people are going to be consuming your Instagram feed on a grid, just like these that I'm showing you. So make sure that the stories are consistent, your photos. You don't have to go overboard. Sometimes people will really curate their collection so that I've even seen them like checkerboard, and I've even done that. And that's cool, but just make sure that it is something that you'll be able to consistently follow through on. I talked about filters just very briefly, but just keep in mind a lousy photo is a lousy photo is a lousy photo, and all the filters in the world aren't going to fix that. Make sure that, again, we're not trying to be appealing to every single Instagram user. You really just need to appeal to your target audience. Videos. One thing that's interesting is, when Facebook videos first came out, we were all taught to use our phones horizontally, but Instagram favors vertical videos. A lot of the people who are consuming your videos are going to be in a situation, whether they're in bed or at an airport, or they're just otherwise unable to hear what you're saying. So make sure that all of your videos add value, even if the person consuming them isn't able to hear you. I would also recommend that you start short and work your way up. Sometimes when we're on video for the first time, I certainly get this way. I get a little rattled. I'm trying to say too many things at one time. And so when we put ourselves in that situation, we tend to ramble. And so I would recommend that you begin your video with the end in mind, and you have planned for the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you keep it short and sweet. And once you get really comfortable with a short, quick, bite-sized nugget video, then you can work your way up. And then, of course, stories and highlights are a really fun way to expand your messaging. Again, IGTV, check that out as soon as you feel otherwise comfortable. Here's a quick checklist for you. Just with your first posts, it's really enough if you just do these 4 things. Just share a clear, really engaging photograph. You can check in at your location if that fits your goals. For some businesses it does, for some it's not so much. And then write that engaging caption with 5 to 7 really well thought out hashtags. So what's next? Well, I want to take your questions. If you would like to connect with me, I'm also on LinkedIn. I'd love a recommendation. I'd love to hear your feedback. I do this a lot, and sometimes with webinars particularly, it's very one-sided. I feel like, wow, I'm really talking a lot. And so I want to make sure that I hear back from you. How can I do better? What did I leave unsaid? So I'd love to hear back from you. I have the slide deck for you. I'm also going to share this with Lori, and I think she's going to send me the attendance list at the end, and I'll email it to you. One way or another, you'll be able to grab this. You'll get the whole deck of slides by email, but if not, there's a quick little short link of how you can access it yourself. And again, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love your feedback. I would also love to, if you're on Marco Polo, almost no one is. There's only a very few people there, but I'd love for you to join our Marco Polo group to keep up the conversation. All right, we only have a few minutes left, but let's see. Do you guys have any questions?
We just have a couple of questions. The first one is, any tips on how to best evaluate if your customer base is on Instagram?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll answer that. There's really 2 things I think you should look at. Whoops. Let me go way back. And while I'm scrolling through, I'll tell you about the other way. So first, I think you'll look at your personal audience. Now, here's what I do not recommend. I do not recommend that you ask people, how'd you find us? How'd you hear about me? Because I'm going to tell you, there's an age-old story about an ad campaign that was running in the newspapers, and then they stood at the door and said, how'd you hear about the sale? And folks said, TV, and they weren't even advertising on TV. So I don't think necessarily querying your audience is accurate, just because we all think we see everything online. right? So I do think Instagram being a specific channel, I think you can ask them their usernames specifically. If they don't know what the heck you're talking about, then you may need to look elsewhere. You can't assume and we can't generalize, but here is the slide with the statistics of who, according to Instagram's algorithms, who is there. It very, very similar. If you remember when Facebook first launched, it was a very, very young audience, and then it aged. And Instagram is doing exactly the same thing. So it started out as a really young audience. It was like 18 to 25, and now it is creeping upwards. And so that's not entirely, that's, I mean, it's going to be very dependent on your specific industry. But you also have to think about, do a little hashtag research of, is your industry something that people go to Instagram to talk about? Is it experiential? Is it a story that you're comfortable telling visually? So for some, it's a no-brainer. If I had a retail storefront, no-brainer. Auto dealers, no-brainer. Real estate, no. I'm sorry, I could start and never stop, but there are some that are certainly more conducive to that audience than others.
Right. Excellent. Then the next one is, how do you gauge success? What expectations? How do you know if you're doing it right and getting some traction?
Yeah, that's a great question. Instagram, interestingly, is looking at eliminating some of the features that have been known to give us that false sense of success, specifically likes and follows. I know a business owner who, had the mindset of, Instagram's a really young thing. I have a young staff member. I'm going to kind of hand the keys to them and let them run with it. And this person had a habit of really being super silly at work. Now, so this person's idea was to film themselves and their colleagues being all kinds of super silly. So it was successful in the fact that people liked, shared, commented on, reshared. They went crazy over the content. But it did not accurately depict their brand. And so your measure of success needs to be far more than how many people like and follow. So you do need, and actually Google Analytics tools can help you with real data that supports how are these efforts converting into sales? How is this converting into real business for us? Because again, marketing doesn't matter if it doesn't lead to revenue. So it's a very important question. And I don't have a definitive answer, but I really do think that I love the way it's asked, because if you don't have a business goal that requires storytelling visually, then maybe it's not the right time to look at Instagram.
Right. That's great. Good. There aren't any other questions. If you have a question, post it now. I have a question for you, just out of my own personal interest. If you had a crystal ball, what do you think, the future of some of these social platforms, including Instagram, will be? Do you see this to continue to kind of age, with like you mentioned with Facebook, or any ideas on what's going to be next or what we'll be doing?
Yeah, so it's funny because I was actually just talking about a training that I went to through MLive, which is a Michigan media company, years ago, and they were talking about how mobile. They were like, mobile is the next cool thing. And we're all sitting there with flip phones thinking, you got to be kidding. That's insane. The screen is too tiny. I would never go on the internet using this tiny
Buy
thing.
anything with this, right?
Yeah. And of course, we are there and we have been there. And now, in case you're wondering, is this mobile device listening to my conversations? It absolutely is. There's no more mystery about that. In fact, if you invest in online advertising, you can specifically target voice. I mean, it's like I say, so I think that's really the next thing, is how voice and how the collection of vocal conversations of our audience, or of us as the consumers, is going to impact the content and what's served up to folks. Not just in ads. we're accustomed to
makes
seeing that
sense.
with ads, right?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. That's interesting. So
Yeah,
thank you.
we live in a
Thank you.
weird time. A year from now, we'll
Right.
be going, of course, I was talking about that, and I saw, organic posts about it. Ads are already
Right.
there. Advertising's already there.
Well, that's great. Well, Cindy, thanks so much. Great job. Definitely an expert in Instagram. I appreciate you sharing this with our members
Of
today.
course.